Is anyone else joining us? Oh,
Ooh.
hello, children. Ooh, we have a story for you.
Ina, what are we here for?
To scare people.
Do you want me to tell you a story?
Please.
A slightly scary story?
Yes, of course.
Okay. This story took place many years ago now. I was a much younger man. I was in high school. And the town I grew up in was a small kind of place where people didn't really lock their doors. And one afternoon, I got home and I opened the door and walked in the house. And after a minute or two, I started singing. And as soon as I started singing and making noise, I heard all these footsteps running down the stairs into the basement. And I thought, oh, I'm not alone here.
Then what happened?
Well, I walked through the house towards the kitchen. And at the end of the kitchen was the stairway that went down into the basement. And it was the kind of basement that was very dark and very wet and not full height. So to get down there, you'd have to crouch and come in. But you couldn't really turn on a light and see what was going on in the basement. So I got to the top of the stairs and I was terrified. And I said, "Is anybody there?" And of course, there was no sound and no response. And beside me was the door into the backyard. So I silently turned the lock so that I would know if somebody left. And I turned around and made it really obvious that I was leaving through the front door. And I went around the house to a point where I could see if someone would leave through the front or the back. And after about 20 minutes, nobody left. Neither door opened. But I went back into the house.
Ooh.
And when I got to the back door, I went into the front door and I was very careful and I was looking all around to see what was going on. Nobody, nobody, nobody. When I got to the back door and I tried the handle, it was unlocked. Someone had left.
I want to know the ending.
That is the ending. It's a true story. That's
Really?
what happened. Mm-hmm.
That's spooky.
It is. But I never found out who was in the house.
Do you think it was someone knew, or?
I don't know. But I was sitting at a point where I could see the back and the front door, and no one left. The door didn't open.
Now I want to get at the bottom of this. I want to know more. What actually happened? That's interesting.
Do you have any stories to tell, Ms. Ina?
I have so many. I think that they're all like clogging up. Which one?
Do you like scary movies?
When we were younger, we used to watch them with all our cousins.
What's the scariest movie you ever saw?
Uh, was it scary movie, horror something? Yeah, we were. I don't know whether we were not very creative with the picks of the movie, or whether the people who made the movies weren't creative, because there was Scary Movie 1, Scary Movie 2, Scary Movie 3, then there was Horror Movie 1, Horror 2.
But isn't scary movie that's the name of it, but they're not scary?
It's like they've already given the ending before they started, which could be interesting because you might be horrified.
Boo.
Boo.
Are you scared? What do
Not
you
really.
think we like? What do you think we like about scary movies?
I think the surprise element.
Like suddenly it goes dark? Ooh.
Did you watch horror movies when you were younger?
I'm always terrified by scary movies. They have a really intense effect on me. And every now and then I'll be like looking on Netflix for something to watch and I'll go, oh, let's watch this. And it will be so traumatic for me. I remember as a kid watching the movie Jaws, and the story became so real to me that I couldn't swim in a swimming pool alone because I would think there was a shark. I would imagine it.
Now that you say it, it's interesting because I thought like they were, after watching a few, I realized that they were kind of boring because I could see that they were all not real, like not true. But I loved to see the response of all my brothers and sisters responding to the movie and freaking out, the ones who did and the ones then. I think the fun was like what we did with that information and movie, like how someone would get really spooked and we'll spook them, or like it was fun. It was fun watching the movies with the
Did
people
you
I
have,
watched.
when you were a kid, did you have someone that told you stories a lot? Like your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather or your father or somebody?
My grandfather did, but not too many. He wrote a lot of books, so he said go read them. But he had an autobiography. But it was interesting that when you created this how to tell a story call, it was interesting that I realized recently my mom shifted and she sent me all my report cards from school, from like kindergarten. She'd been collecting all the report cards that you get in school by the
Mm-hmm.
end of the year. And it from kindergarten to like um, till junior school, every report card had, she's great, but tells a lot of stories. Her stories are endless. Like all of them had something about stories. So I'm curious.
We could tell a story right now. I'll start with one word and then you say the next word and we each just say one word until we made a story. Okay. So
Yes,
I'll start. There,
is
always,
a possibility.
that's two words you cheated.
Oh, sorry. Don't tell anyone. Are we live?
We're here
Yeah.
alone in the dark. No one will know. I love when people tell me stories. I love to listen to them. But there's not that many people left that are really good storytellers, who like enjoy painting a picture with their words and spinning this tale that gets you involved and excited and making you go, oh, and then what? And then what? And then what?
And then what?
Have you ever started reading a book and it's just too hard to get into it?
Yes.
And you're like, this is boring.
Yes.
That's what I want everyone to know, because people seem to have so much more respect for people who've written books. And I've seen people like really want to write a book and they're worried about it and they labor over it and they're concerned about getting their book right. But most people buy books and they never read them.
That's true.
How many books do you have in your house? Hundreds?
Yep.
How many of them have you read?
I would say more than 50% though.
That's pretty good, but you're kind of a smart cookie.
I am. I pass on the ones that I don't want to read.
I have a lot of them that I read the first 20 pages and went, oh, this is boring.
But you have a knack for picking up the really fun ones.
Mm-hmm. I like
I
quirky.
love your collection of books, of stories.
Look, our heads are joining.
He could do this all day long. Why are you doing that? All like this.
I'm just covering my light. Do you think that it's like almost evolutionary that we like listening to stories?
Say again?
Do you think it's almost like evolutionary that we like listening to stories?
It is.
Because like
Actually, yeah.
we would have like there's so many cultural traditions where that's how they share all of their wisdom is by sitting together and talking and sharing stories. Or
Yeah.
they didn't have a written language, so that's what they did. They talked to each other and told stories.
Yeah. We used to have we would start at sometimes at breakfast and still be telling stories on our dining table, a favorite place when we were kids, like family would get together and be telling stories till lunch. It was interesting.
Can I tell you another story?
Yes, please do.
But you already know this story, but just pretend like you've never heard it and be excited, okay?
Okay.
So when I was maybe 17, 16, I don't remember. You're creating like, ooh, it's almost like the fire is flickering.
By the campfire.
Yeah. This is our campfire storytelling. So when I was maybe 16 or 17, I went to this cafe in Ottawa, Canada. I went to visit my friend who lived there. And we found this cool cafe called Rasputin's. And it was really dirty and strange. Like when you walked into the cafe, there was a boat in the cafe, like a rowboat just sitting there, and then a pile of magazines and a broken guitar, and it was just the strangest place. But we went in anyway, and I went up to the bar to order some coffees, and there was this big, beautiful chocolate cake on the bar. And I said, I'd like a piece of chocolate cake, please. And he said, okay. And he gave me the knife and he said, just help yourself. And I was so amazed by this. And I said, well, what if I take the whole cake? And he said, well, then I guess I'll make more cake.
I love that story.
I didn't realize at the time how much he changed my life with that story.
And so many other lives, by the way. Because every time that you tell that story, something more expands in my world in terms of the willingness to have that, be
Yeah.
that.
Well, I realized that's like how I live my life is from no lack, no scarcity, just like I'll make more.
Yes, you do.
Uh-huh. Always. That's probably one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life is I know that no matter what, I will always create more. You know, if everything and everyone went away.
That's guaranteed.
How about this then? What about this as a way to look at stories? Ooh. If you were the author of your destiny, what would you like your story to be?
I like that. Hmm. That opens up more books. Love stories that
Have
breathe
you written
inside.
any books?
I have co-authored one.
What book did you co author?
It's called The Earth Healing the Earth, Earth Healing.
Cool.
So people, like I think about 20 people from around the world put in their stories. And one
Would
of my
you,
stories is in there.
what's your story from that book? Can you tell us it?
Yes. So, hmm, I think I'm like combining two stories.
That's
Well,
okay.
when they can find the book. Um, so it was like I grew up in this small town called Chandigarh. And when I was growing up, it was so Chandigarh is the capital city of Punjab and Haryana, two states. And Punjab and Haryana decided to go into a very different kind of war. They started looking at ways to, there was this whole, um, I would, not an era, like a time span where a lot of stories started to come about women being burned alive for dowry or for the lack of it. And there were stories of women being married and then like how they were just like the mother-in-laws put the or someone in the house put the kerosene oil on them and burnt them in their clothes. And there were all these stories that were coming about honor killing, about and that was a time phase when I was growing up totally in my own world of possibilities. And I didn't realize how much of an impact that was having, that how people were responding to that, and the things that were going on that it was having on me and my body. So when we were about to get, I was at that age when you start getting your periods, and my mom sat me down and told me about it. And I decided that being a woman at some point, like, is going to be painful and it's going to be dark. And it was interesting because I didn't think that was my point of view, but at that point, that's what I sort of got as true. So she sat me down and told about periods, and I was like, "Yikes! Do I really need to have them?" And then when I had them, I decided they're going to be painful. So I made them really painful for a lot many years. They were painful. I would be stressed out. I would get blackouts. I would be able to get out of bed the first 2 days. And my body would really be in pain. And then I found the tools of access consciousness and I started asking a different question because it was such, like, I had let this choice overrule everything else. And I was like, if there's anything I want to change, that's one thing I want to change. So I really started asking my body to show me another way. And first thing that showed up was all the connection points that I had with all of that was going on, and with all everything that I decided that I had to have with all the women in the world and take out from their bodies. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I finally, I think, like, I asked this question of who does it belong to, and let go of all my connection points with a point of view of me only being a woman. For like a week, it changed. I don't have the pains anymore.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
one of the things that really shifted was that throughout my childhood and even with the periods, I decided that I was a burden, like me being a woman or me having a female body was being a burden on the earth, and that's how I was thought of living, having that sense of being a burden. And then I think of asking those questions are shifting that, oh, maybe I'm not a burden, but maybe there's a gift here. Because, like, if you look at it, like, having periods is this, like, it's this point of, it's like a creation, point of creation. But somehow it had twisted into this. I was like, why do I have to be a woman? Why do I have to be here? With the questions, with the profound questions I was asking when I was growing up.
Why? Why?
Why? Why me? Why do I have to be a woman?
But I think that's an amazing story. And to me, that's what stories have the capacity to be. You know, when you have a story that shows people another possibility, not from the like moral of the story. You like, if we look at all the stories that we grew up with, I don't know if they're similar in India, but things like the ant and the grasshopper, and the story of Midas and the golden touch. Basically, it's like, work hard, don't be greedy, be diligent, and like all these like moralistic stories that try to tell you how you're supposed to live a good life rather than showing you a choice to have your reality, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's actually really powerful to share your stories, even though for those who've taken the Access Consciousness Foundation class, there's a part where it says, don't listen to, buy, or tell the story. But that's when we use our story or our past or our history or things that have occurred in our lives as a reason or a crutch. Like it's why we can't choose or can't have a different possibility. Oh, you don't understand my pain. I've lost a child. Oh, you don't understand how hard it is to be me. That's why I can't get over this and have an emotionally stable life. But that's like, what if the horrible things that have occurred in your life weren't necessarily horrible, and that only occurs when you take the story and change the narrative, change it to be one of empowerment where you're choosing something beyond trauma and drama and upset and sadness.
Yeah. That's what one was a key part as well. Like it's like this whole thing of trying to fit in to this world of pain and trauma and drama. Because that seems to be we seem to be listening to that more than the stories of possibilities. And I'm really excited about the call coming up of how to tell a story because it like that was a story. That was like the story to disempower what I was telling myself before. And I think the first tool that I got was with Access Consciousness was that I'm the creator of my life. And I was like, fuck, if I create that shit, I can create something else too. So what would I like to create?
Mm.
That like no one had told me that that you had another choice. It was like, this is how it is. You will have it for the rest of your life and you'll have to deal it with every month and like all of that things that you tell someone like you're going to have to be dealing with for the rest of your life rather than what it is, what it can be, and that you have choice is that's the story of
Mm.
possibilities that I'm curious to
The other
hear.
thing too, and we're going to talk about this in the class this week, is like hearing you tell your story about becoming a woman and presented with all of those images of what it is to be a woman in India and seeing your different perspective. I feel like I know more of you. Like there's a sense of having more of you in my life and more awareness of you and more of the like, I don't know, almost the intimacy of like knowing somebody. Like we do this exercise in the Right Voice classes where we get people to tell stories, and that's a lot of what we're going to do in this class this week. Is it's going to be very hands-on writing and telling stories and even jokes. And I just always find it amazing when you get to know people better and you're like, huh, I never expected that from that person. Like there was this one lady at one of the classes, she started telling about her job smuggling drugs between cities and all this crazy stuff that she did. And I was like, wow, that is not at all what I expected from this person.
Yeah.
You have an interesting story as well about meeting your husband, because so many Indian marriages are arranged. But how did how did you meet your husband?
Well, I was really in a good place. I wasn't really looking for a man. I was very happy. I was like, I think about 30, and I was like, oh my God, this is good. I don't know why people talk about not turning 30. It's like, this is good. I've got my life going. I've got business going. I like my body. I like myself. I was getting better. And my friend starts talking about she's working with this guy and in his architecture firm, and she as an interior designer, and she was like, you every time that she would hang out with him in office and she would come back and you've got to meet this guy, you'll hit out well, like whatever. And she said that for a year, then she left. She left the job, she went back home to her village, and this guy messages me and says, "Hey, do you want to meet?" On Orkut. He didn't have my number, but both of us were like, "No, not interested." And that, like, after 2 days, I saw the message and we were like, "Okay, let's meet." He said, "Coffee?" I said, "Yes." And then we met outside, out like there was the two places. There was a cafe and a bar, and we stood outside. We looked at each other. We looked at the cafe. We looked at the bar, and we started walking towards the bar. And the interesting part was because he is like from Calcutta, which is Bengal, and in India, like Bengalis are supposed to be the art and culture and the intellectuals and the highly educated sort of people who've written a lot of like Rabindranath Tagore is from Bengal, and so I had all these points of views about it. I was like, what if it's so boring? I don't know what to do. So I had backup plan. I told my brother and
I,
my
I'm listening to you. My computer just is running out of battery. I have to plug it in.
plug it in. So where was I? Yeah. So I had a backup plan. I told my cousin and my brother that, hey, I'm going to meet this guy. It might be really random. He might be extremely boring, and I might want to get out in like 5, 10 minutes. So why don't you call me in like half an hour or 20 minutes time, and then if it's boring, just drop in to the place. And they so the first thing that happened was Odvish and I walked into the this guy and I walked into the bar. It was like an Irish pub, and we sat in one table and we looked at the place and we were like, no, do you want to move? And then we moved to the next table and then we looked at the feel of that and like, no, maybe next to the window. And then we changed the three tables and like I was like, yes, I can sit with this guy maybe. If he's fussy enough to choose the place that's actually going to work for him, which I did. So this one, so my cousin and my brother called me like in 20 minutes and they said, "So, do you want a rescue team on board?" Uh, and I was like, "No, I'm having so much fun." I had such a fun conversation with him about things. And I think the fun thing was that you know how like when you meet someone and you can have more sense of what you're being now than playing the roles that have been defined by the people you've been hanging out with.
Yeah.
So be the space that I was, the change that had occurred.
My computer isn't taking any battery. I don't know why it won't charge. But no, go on. Keep telling your story. I am listening to you. I think it's amazing because it's not most people's reality in India. Not that it's right. It's just different.
It is, yeah. In the sense that, like, yeah, a lot of my friends at that time were getting arranged marriages, and like, even with me, like, with everyone thought that my mom was crazy because she wasn't putting pressure enough on me to get married or find a guy. Um, every now and then she'll be saying, "Am I being a bad mom? Do I need to be worried and put some pressure?" And I'm like, "No, you're doing fine. Don't need to." And then she would do her bit. She and her sister, three of them, I had three mothers, the three put an ad in the newspaper to find me a
No,
guy. They did. And I would catch them giggling in the toilet and they didn't tell me. And they would be giggling in the toilet and they not one guy they presented to me, but they had a blast putting that ad in because the kind of response they got hundreds of responses. The responses they got were so hilarious. They didn't bother to tell me a single one, but I caught them laughing and giggling so many times. It's like, what the hell are you guys up to? Said, we actually put an ad in the newspaper for you, but the responses are so funny. So yeah, so they had their fun.
but was your mom happy for you to find your own partner?
Yeah, she was.
That's so
She
cool.
when I was growing up, she was the strange one. She's always been like the different mom, but she was a strange one because she said, "Listen, honey, don't settle for the first guy you meet. Try them out, see what's going to work for you. Don't go by the rules. Go by what you know," which was pretty cool at that time. At
That's
that time, my
very
friends
cool.
couldn't even come out.
Wow. Well, see, I love hearing other people's stories. And everything about your life that has you've experienced that you've seen can be a story that you can use to show other people different possibilities.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my computer is running out of steam and it doesn't like it's not taking any more power from the wall. I don't know why. But
Before we go, I just want to say when we started this live, before we start this live, we were going to come up with a story each, and I was like, I don't have any story to tell, but I want to hop on because this is too much fun. And you were like, that's okay, I have a story. But I love the way how you, I think I'm already told three stories.
yeah,
And that, yeah, thank you for being that, like,
and
for
you're
this space where people can access that for themselves.
like, how many things have we experienced in our life that we take for granted that could actually invite people to a different possibility? If we allowed ourselves to acknowledge what we know and what we have available and the gift of language to paint people a picture and show them that possibility. Boo.
Boom. It would be a different world.
Well, if anyone wants to sign up or wants to know more, it's mrchristopherhughes.com/story. We're going to tell stories. We're going to write stories. We're going to write advertisements. We're going to do all sorts of things. Boo.
Boom.
Bye, Miss Ina.
Bye, Christopher and everybody. See you soon. Somewhere.
Ooh.